The restaurant was already loud before the evening rush even began. Plates clinked, chairs scraped the floor, and tired voices mixed with the smell of fried food and hot bread. It was the kind of place people came to when they wanted something cheap, filling, and familiar. Nothing fancy. Nothing special. Just another stop in another long day. She had been on her feet since early morning. Her shoes hurt, her back ached, and her smile felt heavier with every passing hour. Still, she kept it on her face. Not the fake kind, but the quiet smile of someone who had learned that being kind was easier than explaining pain. She moved from table to table, refilling glasses, writing orders on a small notepad, and apologizing when food took too long. Most customers barely noticed her. Some didn't even look up when they spoke. A few were rude, snapping their fingers or talking loudly on their phones while she waited. She had learned not to take it personally. This job was not her dream. It was just what she had for now. It paid the bills. Barely she had been working there for years, long enough to recognize regular faces. The old man who always asked for extra sugar, the couple who argued softly but always shared dessert, and then there was the little boy. He didn't come every day, but often enough that she remembered him. He was small for his age, with neat clothes and careful manners. He always said thank you. Always looked people in the eye. He came with an older man who sat quietly and watched the room more than his phone. They usually took the same table near the window, the first time she served them. The boy had spilled water all over the table. He panicked, thinking he would get in trouble. She had laughed gently, wiped it up, and told him it was no problem at all. The boy had looked at her like she had done something huge. Since then, he always greeted her with a small wave. Sometimes he asked how her day was going. Not many people asked that. That evening started like any other. The sky outside was turning dark, and the lights inside the restaurant made everything feel warmer than it really was. She tied her apron tighter and took a deep breath before stepping back onto the floor. Her section was full. Orders were stacking up. The kitchen was slow. She moved faster, but her mind felt tired. She reminded herself that the shift would end soon. Just a few more hours. Then she saw the boy and the older man walk in. They took their usual table. She grabbed menus and walked over, already preparing her polite greeting. Before she could speak, the boy smiled wide. "You remembered my favorite table," he said. She chuckled softly. "I did," she replied. "Good to see you again." The older man nodded in thanks. He didn't say much, but his eyes were kind. They ordered simply, like always. The boy spoke carefully, choosing his words like they mattered. As she walked away, she noticed something different. The boy kept touching his pocket, checking it again and again. His foot bounced under the table. He was nervous. She didn't think much of it at first. Children got excited over small things. The restaurant grew busier. Voices got louder. A birthday group clapped near the back. Someone dropped a fork. Life went on. She was carrying a tray of drinks when she heard a chair scrape loudly across the floor. At first she ignored it. Then the room went strangely quiet. She turned her head. The boy was standing. He wasn't smiling now. His hands were shaking slightly. The older man looked surprised, confused even, but didn't stop him. The boy took a step forward. People started noticing. Conversation slowed. Someone laughed, thinking it was just a child being playful. She felt her chest tighten. She placed the tray down slowly. Her eyes locked on him. He walked toward her, each step careful, like he had practiced this many times in his head. Then, right there on the restaurant floor, he lowered himself down. He knelt. Gasps spread across the room. A few people chuckled. Someone whispered, "Is this real?" Her mind went blank. She stood frozen, one hand gripping her apron, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She had no idea what to do. No idea what was happening. The boy reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object wrapped in tissue paper. His hands trembled as he held it up. "I want to ask you something," he said. His voice was clear, but full of emotion. She felt heat rush to her face. People were staring. Phones were coming out. Her first thought was that this was a joke. a misunderstanding. Something that needed to be stopped immediately. She took a small step back. "Hey," she said softly, trying to smile. "You don't have to." He looked up at her. "Please," he said, "let me finish." Something in his eyes made her stop. The restaurant was silent now. She swallowed hard, her thoughts racing. This couldn't be happening. Not here. Not like this. She thought of her job, the rules, the attention. She thought of how tired she was, how unprepared she felt. The boy took a deep breath. "Will you?" He began. She stopped breathing. Around them, strangers leaned forward, waiting. Some smiled. Some looked uncomfortable. No one expected what was about to be said. She felt time slow down. Her entire life had been filled with moments where she felt invisible, forgotten, overlooked. Yet here she was, in the center of a room full of people, with a child kneeling in front of her, asking something that made no sense at all. Her hands shook. Her thoughts tangled. And before she could say a single word, the boy continued. That was the moment everything began to change. The restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Even the clatter of dishes in the kitchen had softened, and voices that had filled the room moments ago were now hushed, as if everyone sensed something extraordinary was unfolding. The boy stayed on one knee, holding the small object carefully in his tiny hands, and the older man who had accompanied him looked equally frozen, unsure whether to intervene or stay still. She could barely move. Her mind raced, spinning in circles, trying to make sense of what was happening. She had served hundreds of customers, faced countless strange moments, but nothing like this. A child proposing? It made no sense, and yet the sincerity in his eyes told her it was no joke. Her heart thumped painfully, a mix of confusion, embarrassment, and an unexpected curiosity. She wanted to speak, to say something reassuring, but the words tangled in her throat. She felt exposed, as though the room had shrunk to nothing but her and this small boy, and everyone else had faded into shadows. The boy shifted slightly, looking at her with an expression that was too serious for his age. "I know I'm small," he said, his voice clear despite the tremor in it, "but I wanted to do this my way. I wanted to make you happy." She swallowed hard. Happiness. What kind of child understood these things? The room's silence weighed heavily on her. Other customers had begun whispering among themselves, some leaning closer to get a glimpse, but she tried to block them out. Focusing solely on him, the older man cleared his throat. His voice was calm, steady, but carried an edge of concern. "Son, are you sure about this?" The boy nodded without hesitation. "I've thought about it. I want to do this. Please just let me." Her knees felt weak. She had been prepared for awkward customer interactions, for complaints, for even the occasional angry person. But never this. She felt the weight of every pair of eyes in the room, and yet, in the midst of that pressure, a strange warmth grew in her chest, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time. The boy's hands shook slightly as he unwrapped the small paper. Inside was a carefully folded note. She realized he had written it himself. She took a cautious step forward, curiosity overcoming the initial shock, and gently took the note. His eyes never left hers. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded it. The handwriting was small and neat, every letter formed with care. She read the words slowly, absorbing each one. It was not what she expected. It wasn't a marriage proposal, not in the adult sense. Instead, it was an innocent, heartfelt declaration. He thanked her for always being kind, for smiling at him, even when no one else noticed, for treating him and his guardian with respect. He spoke about how she made the restaurant brighter, how she seemed to carry patience in her every action, and how he wished to always see her happy. Her eyes welled up with tears. The simplicity of it, the purity of his intentions, hit her harder than anything anyone had ever said to her. This was not about romance, not about anything complicated or dangerous. It was the purest form of gratitude, expressed in a way that startled everyone around them. She looked down at him, and for the first time she smiled truly, the tension in her body melting slightly. You didn't have to do this," she whispered. "But thank you. It means a lot." The boy's small face lit up, and he looked as though he had been holding his breath, waiting for that exact response. "I wanted to. I really did," he said. "I just wanted to make sure you knew how special you are." The room seemed to exhale collectively. Customers relaxed. Some clapped softly. Others smiled, touched by the innocence of the moment. The older man finally smiled, a gentle nod of approval passing between him and the boy. He looked at her and said, "You see what I mean? He's got a good heart." She laughed quietly, tears spilling down her cheeks. "He does," she said, her voice thick. "He really does." The boy jumped to his feet and handed her a small hand-drawn picture. It depicted her behind the counter, smiling, with the restaurant around her full of happy people. The detail was incredible for someone his age, and it made her heart swell. She held it close, touched by the thought and effort he had put into it. "Keep it," he said softly, "so you'll always remember this moment." She nodded, speechless. It was a gesture so small, so simple, yet so meaningful. The weight of the day's exhaustion, the constant strain of smiling through pain and fatigue, seemed to lift for a moment, replaced by a warmth she hadn't felt in years. Other staff members, who had witnessed the scene from the sidelines, started murmuring among themselves, exchanging looks of surprise and amusement. Some customers even took out their phones, not to ridicule, but to capture the moment. It was unlike anything anyone had ever expected to happen in a small, ordinary restaurant. She glanced around and noticed that everyone was watching, yet none of the attention felt intrusive. Instead, it felt like a shared recognition of something beautiful and rare. A moment where human kindness and sincerity were on full display. The boy's guardian leaned in and whispered something to him. The boy nodded. They stood, preparing to leave, but not before the boy waved at her. "See you next time," he said. She waved back, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. "See you," she replied, her voice full of emotion as they walked out. She held the note, and drawing close, still shaking slightly from the intensity of the moment. The customers slowly returned to their meals, the clatter and chatter resuming, but it all felt different. Something had changed, though she couldn't quite name it. She returned to her work, but every step felt softer, every smile easier. The boy's words and gesture had reminded her that even in ordinary hard days, small moments of kindness could have a profound impact. Throughout the rest of her shift, she couldn't stop thinking about him, the courage it took to express gratitude so openly, and the reminder that life sometimes surprises us in ways we never expect. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen, appreciated, and connected to the world in a simple but unforgettable way. As the evening wound down, and the last of the customers left, she sat down for a moment. Holding the drawing in her hands, she looked around the empty restaurant, the quiet now filled with the faint echoes of laughter and chatter from earlier. The memory of the boy, kneeling with sincerity and courage, stayed with her. It was a memory that would linger, a story she knew she would never forget, a reminder that the world could still be full of small, unexpected wonders. The next morning, the memory of the boy's gesture stayed with her like a soft echo in her mind. The restaurant was quiet now, the hum of the early shift bringing a different energy. She arrived earlier than usual, hoping to have a few moments to herself before the chaos of the day began. Her feet still ached, and her muscles protested. But there was a lightness in her chest that hadn't been there for months. She placed the drawing and note carefully on the small shelf behind the counter, a visible reminder of the previous night. The colors were bright, and the words simple yet powerful. Every time she glanced at them, she smiled. For once, she felt like her efforts mattered. Like the small acts of patience and kindness she gave every day weren't invisible. The morning passed slowly. Orders came in one after another, each requiring careful attention. She moved through her section with the practiced rhythm of someone who knew every table, for every habit of her regulars, and every complaint that might come. But beneath the monotony, she felt a spark of anticipation. She wondered if the boy and his guardian would return. Part of her hoped they would, and another part tried not to get her hopes up, afraid of disappointment. By mid-afternoon, the restaurant had settled into a steady flow. The lunch crowd had left, leaving a few lone customers scattered across the tables. She wiped down counters, refilled napkin holders, and paused for a moment, staring out the window. She noticed children playing in the street, their laughter ringing out, carefree and light. It reminded her of the boy, his courage and his purity. She had never met anyone quite like him. Then the door opened, and she felt her heart skip a beat. There they were, the boy and his guardian. The sight of them walking back into the restaurant sent a rush of excitement and nerves through her. She took a deep breath and plastered on a calm, professional smile. Though her stomach fluttered with anticipation, they approached their usual table, and she hurried over with menus in hand. The boy's eyes lit up when he saw her, and she couldn't help but smile back warmly. "Hello again," she said softly. "Good to see you both," the boy beamed. "Hi. I brought something for you," he said, reaching into his bag. She tilted her head in surprise, curious about what it could be this time. Before she could ask, he pulled out a small handmade card, decorated with crayons and glitter. The effort was clear, the care in every stroke visible. Inside, he had written a message about gratitude, happiness, and how her smile made the world better for people around her. She felt a lump form in her throat as she read the words. "You didn't have to do this," she said, touched beyond words. "It's very sweet of you." "Thank you." The boy nodded earnestly. "I wanted to," he said simply. "You deserve it." The guardian smiled from across the table, saying, "He takes his time thinking about things. He meant what he did last night, and he means this too." The shift went on, and for the first time in a long while, she felt seen not just as a waitress, but as a person. Customers came and went. Orders were filled, but the boy and his guardian stayed, talking quietly and sharing small moments with her. He asked about her day, about what she liked outside of work, about the small things she often kept to herself. Each question, simple as it seemed, carried a depth of care she had rarely experienced. At one point, the boy asked if he could help with small tasks, like clearing tables or refilling drinks. She laughed softly, shaking her head, but allowed him to carry a small tray with plastic cups. He was careful, deliberate, and even though he was clumsy at times, the joy in his eyes made every mistake endearing. Other customers noticed the unusual scene, and some smiled. The staff watched quietly, not wanting to disturb the delicate balance of this strange, beautiful interaction. The boy's energy was infectious, and slowly, the mood in the restaurant shifted. People who had arrived stressed or tired started to relax. Some laughed quietly at the boy's cheerful chatter. The ordinary, repetitive rhythm of the restaurant became something warmer, lighter, and more human. Hours passed, and the afternoon light shifted into the soft glow of early evening. She found herself laughing more freely than she had in a long time, sharing small stories and jokes with the boy. His guardian watched silently, occasionally adding a word, but mostly letting the child lead the interaction. It was a gentle partnership, quiet understanding that left her feeling both cared for and energized. By the time the evening rush approached, the boy and his guardian prepared to leave. She felt a pang of disappointment but smiled nonetheless. The boy handed her a small paper bag. "A little something for you," he said, and her curiosity overcame her surprise. She peeked inside to find a homemade cookie, carefully wrapped, with a small note that read, "Because you make people happy, you deserve a little happiness too." Her hands trembled as she accepted it. "Thank you," she said softly, genuinely moved. She realized that these gestures, small and innocent as they were, carried more meaning than most adult interactions she had ever experienced. They left, waving goodbye, and she watched them disappear into the street. A strange mix of gratitude and melancholy washing over her. She returned to her duties, but the memory of the day stayed with her. Every small detail, the boy's earnestness, the homemade card, the cookie, was etched in her mind. A reminder that human connection could appear in the most unexpected forms. Later, when the restaurant quieted down again, she sat behind the counter and reflected on the impact of a simple act of kindness. For years, she had moved through life feeling overlooked, unnoticed, and unimportant. Yet, here was a small child who saw her. who recognized her efforts, her humanity, and her capacity to bring warmth to others. She realized that perhaps the true measure of life's value was not in wealth, recognition, or titles, but in moments like these, moments of sincerity, gratitude, and pure, uncalculated love. As she wiped down the counter for the last time that evening, she looked at the drawing and card once again. The colors seemed brighter now, and the words almost sang on the paper. She felt a resolve forming inside her. Life might continue to be hard, demanding, and often thankless. But she understood now that even small gestures could ripple outward in ways she never imagined. And she promised herself she would remember this day, not as an odd or awkward encounter, but as a turning point, a reminder that even in the most ordinary places, extraordinary kindness could exist, waiting to be recognized, cherished, and returned. The days that followed were different for her. She went about her work with the same routines, but something had changed inside her. Each smile she offered, each tray she carried, each polite word exchanged with customers felt lighter, more genuine. She realized she had been carrying invisible weights for years, burdens she hadn't fully recognized. But the boy's gesture, the way he had seen her, had lifted a part of that weight, if only temporarily. She began to notice things she hadn't before: the small acts of kindness from coworkers, the quiet laughter of regular customers, the way sunlight fell across the tables in the morning. Life, even in the confines of a busy, ordinary restaurant, seemed richer, more vivid. She felt more present, more attentive, as though she had been walking through life half asleep and someone had gently nudged her awake. One evening, a week after the boy's proposal, the restaurant was quieter than usual. The usual dinner crowd had not arrived, and she found herself with a rare moment to pause. She leaned against the counter, staring at the drawing and card still pinned neatly on the shelf. She traced the lines with her eyes, remembering the boy's small, determined face and the warmth that had radiated from his words. She realized she hadn't fully processed what that night meant for her. It was more than gratitude. It was recognition. She mattered. Someone saw her. Someone cared. The door opened, and her heart skipped a beat. There they were again, the boy and his guardian. This time, she noticed a new spring in the boy's step, a confidence that had not been there before. He waved eagerly as they approached, and she hurried to greet them. "Hi," she said, her voice lighter than usual. "Good to see you." The boy grinned. "Hi. I wanted to come back and show you something I've been working on," he said, curious. She followed him to the table, where he pulled out a small sketchbook, filled with drawings of the restaurant, its staff, and even herself behind the counter. Each page told a story, a moment captured with care, details observed with remarkable attention. She was touched by the thoughtfulness and dedication that went into each image. "These are amazing," she said softly, flipping through the pages. "You have a real talent." The boy beamed, proud of her praise. "I wanted to show you how I see the world here. It's fun and happy because of you." The guardian nodded, smiling quietly. "He's been practicing every day. He's very serious about it." As the day passed, the boy continued to share small stories, ideas, and drawings with her. Customers came and went, some stopping to smile at the unusual scene. But most of the restaurant seemed to revolve around this small bubble of kindness, creativity, and genuine interaction. She realized she had been so focused on survival that she had almost forgotten the joy of simple, human connection. The boy asked if he could help again, and this time she allowed him to carry small plates and napkins. He moved carefully, mimicking her actions, and the attention to detail was endearing. She found herself laughing more freely, enjoying his company, and feeling a sense of purpose beyond the routine of her work. After a while, the boy leaned closer, whispering something that made her smile. He had noticed a new regular customer, a lonely man who always ate at the corner table. He suggested small ways to make him feel welcomed. She followed his lead, offering a friendly word, a warm smile, and the man's face lit up. The boy had a natural instinct for noticing the overlooked, the lonely, and the small joys that many adults missed. By the evening, the restaurant was busy again, and she was moving quickly to manage her section. Yet, even in the rush, she felt a sense of calm, a quiet joy that came from connecting with someone so genuine. The boy and his guardian stayed until closing, helping in small ways and sharing laughter that echoed through the space. As they left, the boy handed her another small gift, a handmade bracelet, carefully braided with colorful threads. A note attached read, "To remember that you bring color to the world." Her hands shook slightly as she accepted it, feeling a deep emotional connection to this small child, who had unknowingly changed her perspective on life. She watched them walk away, feeling a mix of gratitude, hope, and a desire to hold on to the lessons they had brought into her life. The simple acts of kindness, the courage to express feelings, and the awareness of others' humanity had awakened something within her in the days that followed. She noticed changes not just in herself, but also in her interactions with others. She began to speak more freely with coworkers, offering encouragement and support where before she might have remained silent. Customers who had once been ignored received her attention and warmth, and she realized how contagious kindness could be. The boy had shown her that small gestures, even from someone young and seemingly powerless, could create ripples that reached far beyond what anyone could imagine. The restaurant, once a place of routine and monotony, became a space where she sought out moments of connection. She smiled more, listened more, and found herself noticing the details of life she had once overlooked. The boy's presence, his drawings, his notes, and his unfiltered sincerity had transformed not just her workday but her outlook on life. One afternoon, she found herself sitting quietly after her shift, looking at the collection of gifts and drawings the boy had left. Each one was a testament to the power of observation, gratitude, and genuine emotion. She realized that life's value wasn't measured in money, recognition, or status, but in the depth of connection, the courage to express feelings, and the willingness to see the goodness in others. The boy had reminded her that even in the most ordinary of places, extraordinary moments could occur, and she vowed to carry that lesson forward, to approach each day with the awareness that every small act of kindness mattered, that every genuine smile could change someone's life. And that recognition, even from the youngest and most unexpected sources, was a gift worth cherishing. Months passed, and the small acts of kindness continued to shape her life in ways she could never have imagined. The boy and his guardian became regular visitors, each time bringing with them a sense of light and joy that seemed to linger long after they had gone. She had come to anticipate their visits, not out of obligation, but because their presence reminded her of the goodness in the world, the simple power of human connection. The restaurant had changed too, not in its walls or its menu, but in its atmosphere. Conversations were warmer, laughter more frequent, and the air seemed lighter. She noticed that even the staff moved with a bit more care, a bit more consideration, perhaps influenced by the quiet example set by the boy's sincerity and openness. One particularly busy evening, the boy arrived with a new project. He had drawn a detailed map of the restaurant, highlighting areas he considered special and marking small notes about moments he had enjoyed there. He showed it to her proudly, explaining each detail, and she listened, captivated by his imagination and thoughtfulness. It was a reminder that seeing the world through someone else's eyes could reveal beauty she had never noticed before. She found herself reflecting more on her own life. Outside the restaurant, the boy had a way of bringing clarity to her thoughts, helping her see the importance of small joys and the value of being present. She began to take more care of herself, allowing small moments of happiness to enter her life without guilt. The kindness she had received became a mirror, reflecting back into her world in subtle but profound ways. One evening, as the restaurant quieted and the last customers left, she sat behind the counter, looking at the collection of drawings, notes, and small gifts the boy had left over time. Each one told a story, not just about the boy, but about her journey, about the power of being seen and appreciated. She realized that these moments had shifted something fundamental within her. She was no longer just going through the motions. She was living fully and consciously. Aware of the impact of her actions on others and of theirs on her, the boy had learned as well. He had grown more confident, more observant, and more empathetic. The small lessons he imparted through his drawings, notes, and interactions were not just for her, but for everyone in the restaurant. His example created a ripple effect, inspiring small acts of kindness, consideration, and attention that slowly transformed the environment around him. One day, she received a letter, carefully folded and addressed in the boy's neat handwriting. Inside, he wrote about the joy he felt every time he visited the restaurant, the lessons he had learned about caring for others, and his hope that she never forgot the impact of her kindness on him and everyone around her. The letter was simple, yet it carried the weight of genuine gratitude and insight. She held it close, feeling tears of both happiness and pride. The restaurant continued to be a place of ordinary routines. Yet within those routines, extraordinary moments unfolded. A child's courage to express feelings, a small note of appreciation, a shared smile, these became the threads that wove a tapestry of connection and understanding. She realized that life's beauty was often hidden in these small, overlooked gestures. Her interactions with customers grew richer. She listened more intently, smiled more genuinely, and found satisfaction in small victories. A child's laughter, a customer's sincere thanks, a colleague's shared joke. Each moment she recognized held the potential to change someone's day, just as the boy had changed hers. Over time, she began to share the story of the boy's kindness with her coworkers. It wasn't a story of heroism or drama, but a story of perspective, gratitude, and the power of noticing and appreciating others. It sparked small changes in the staff as well, encouraging them to engage with customers and each other in more thoughtful ways. One day, the boy arrived with a new surprise. He had brought a small plant, carefully potted and labeled with a handwritten tag. "For you, it's grow as your kindness grows." She laughed softly, touched by the thoughtfulness. She placed the plant on the counter, a living reminder of the ongoing impact of simple, heartfelt gestures. As she watered the plant, she reflected on the journey she had experienced over the past months. Life had taught her many lessons, but the most profound had come from the smallest source, a child's sincerity. It reminded her that one person, regardless of age or status, could create meaningful change through thoughtfulness, courage, and care. The boy and his guardian continued to visit regularly, their presence a steady rhythm in her life. Each visit reinforced lessons of gratitude, observation, and human connection. She found herself embracing these values, not just in her work, but in all aspects of life, recognizing that small, consistent acts of kindness could ripple outward in ways that transformed ordinary spaces into places of joy and meaning. In the quiet moments after the restaurant closed, she often sat with the drawings, letters, and notes the boy had given her. They were more than gifts. They were symbols of a profound lesson that attention, care, and appreciation, no matter how small, could have transformative power. She had learned that being seen mattered, that kindness mattered, and that the world could be brighter when people took the time to notice and nurture each other. And so, in the ordinary rhythm of the restaurant, amidst the clatter of dishes and the chatter of customers, she carried a quiet but enduring truth. Life's most extraordinary moments were often found in the simplest acts: a drawing, a note, a smile, a word of thanks. And in these moments, she had discovered a deep, human connection that would stay with her forever, guiding her, inspiring her, and reminding her of the power of kindness, courage, and genuine appreciation. Time moved on. Yet the impact of the boy's small acts of kindness continued to shape her life. Each day in the restaurant was no longer just about work or earning a paycheck. It had become a space of learning, of connection, and of unexpected moments that reminded her why small gestures mattered so much. She carried the memory of the boy's courage in her heart, letting it influence her actions, words, and outlook. The restaurant had settled into a steady rhythm, but she noticed a change in herself and the people around her. Coworkers were more considerate, customers more relaxed, and the air carried a subtle warmth that hadn't been there before. Even the regulars seemed to interact more genuinely, smiling and chatting with each other, noticing details in ways they hadn't before. It was as though the boy's presence had sparked something invisible, a ripple that continued to spread outward, touching everyone who entered. One rainy afternoon, she was busy at her station when the boy arrived once more. This time he carried a small backpack, and his excitement was immediately evident. He waved at her, a huge grin on his face, and she waved back, feeling her heart lift at the sight of him. The guardian followed quietly, smiling as they took their usual table by the window. The boy quickly pulled out a small project he had been working on, a handmade booklet filled with stories he had written. Each story revolved around people helping each other, acts of kindness, and the joy of noticing and appreciating the world. He had illustrated each story carefully, using colors and designs that made each page lively and engaging. She took the booklet from him, flipping through the pages with awe and admiration. "These are incredible," she said, her voice soft. "You've put so much care into each one." He nodded proudly. "I wanted to show you how I see the world when people are kind. It makes everything better." She smiled, feeling a deep warmth inside. "You're right. It does make everything better." The guardian watched quietly, nodding. "He's learned a lot about how much impact small actions can have," they said. "And he wanted to share that with you because you've shown him kindness too." The afternoon unfolded slowly, with the boy reading his stories aloud and sharing small illustrations. She listened, occasionally laughing at the humor he had added, sometimes pausing to marvel at his insight. Customers glanced over, curious, and many were touched by the sincerity and creativity of the young storyteller. The energy in the restaurant felt lighter, happier, as if the room itself recognized the innocence and wisdom in the boy's words. When the lunch rush began, she moved efficiently, but her mind stayed partially with the boy's stories. Each small act she performed, pouring water, taking orders, delivering plates, felt meaningful. She realized she had internalized a lesson she hadn't fully understood before, that noticing, appreciating, and responding with kindness could transform the ordinary into something extraordinary. Later in the day, the boy asked if he could help with small tasks again. This time, she allowed him to assist more actively, showing him how to refill condiments, wipe tables, and interact with customers politely. He learned quickly, his small hands precise and careful, and the joy he displayed was infectious. Other staff members watched, some smiling, some shaking their heads in disbelief at the unusual yet heartwarming scene. Customers noticed too, offering gentle compliments to the boy, which made him beam even brighter. As evening approached and the last of the dinner crowd dwindled, she found herself reflecting on the journey she had experienced over the past months. She remembered the night he had knelt on the floor, proposing in his own innocent way, how that moment had sparked a series of events that changed her perception of life, work, and human connection. She realized that life's true value wasn't in wealth, status, or accolades, but in the relationships we nurture, the gratitude we express, and the kindness we show. No matter how small or unexpected, the boy handed her another note, carefully folded and written in his meticulous handwriting. It read, "Thank you for noticing me, for listening, and for showing that small things matter. You make the world brighter." She held it close to her heart, tears brimming in her eyes. It was more than words. It was a lesson she would carry for the rest of her life. That night, she closed the restaurant. She placed the booklet, drawings, notes, and small gifts on a shelf where they could be seen easily. Each item represented not just a memory, but a philosophy that human connection and kindness could profoundly affect lives in ways no one might expect. She felt a deep gratitude, not just for the boy's actions, but for the awareness they had awakened within her. Over the following weeks, she noticed that the lessons extended beyond the restaurant. She began to engage more meaningfully with people outside of work, noticing small acts of kindness in her neighborhood, in the store, and even in passing on the street. She learned to pause, to appreciate, and to respond with care. The world seemed slightly brighter, more connected, and filled with moments that could have easily gone unnoticed. One afternoon, the boy returned with a small plant, freshly potted and carefully wrapped. A note attached read, "To grow like the kindness you show every day." She laughed softly, touched beyond words, and placed the plant on the counter beside the drawings and letters. Each day, Watering it, she felt the symbolism of growth, patience, and attention. Like the plant, kindness needed care, and its effects could be seen slowly but beautifully over time. The boy and his guardian continued to visit, each time bringing small gifts, stories, or drawings, each filled with sincere emotion and observation. She realized that their presence had changed not only her perspective, but the atmosphere of the restaurant itself. The staff and regulars had grown more attentive, more compassionate, and more aware of the value in simple gestures. Through it all, she carried a quiet but powerful understanding. Life's most extraordinary moments often came in ordinary packages. A child's courage, a note of gratitude, a shared smile, a carefully drawn picture. These small things had the power to transform moods, lives, and even communities. And she understood that being seen, truly seen, could be life-changing as she closed the restaurant that evening. She glanced at the collection of memories, the drawings, notes, gifts, and now the growing plant. Each represented not just the boy's generosity and insight, but the lessons she had learned along the way. She felt a sense of fulfillment and peace that had once seemed unreachable. The boy had reminded her that life was not just about the tasks we perform or the challenges we endure, but about the relationships we build, the kindness we extend, and the courage to express gratitude and appreciation. His simple yet profound actions had opened her eyes to a world rich with human connection and possibility. And so, in the quiet of the empty restaurant, surrounded by tokens of small but powerful acts of kindness, she felt a deep and enduring hope. She knew that the lessons of gratitude, observation, and human connection would continue to guide her, inspiring her to notice the beauty around her, to nurture relationships, and to recognize that even the smallest gestures could ripple outward in ways that changed lives, including her own.